Hey, it's Jag, and welcome to part 2 of the Winter Build 2021-2022.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've run into a problem right off the bat. I was just getting ready to install the hardware, the chassis mounted components and whatnot, and the first thing that we do on this is mount the tube sockets. This amp, the Custom Plexi, uses three 12AX7 tubes. It uses two 6v6 output tubes and also uses a octal-based rectifier tube, or you can install a solid-state rectifier in that socket. And this is where the problem comes in. The chassis is punched out for several different versions of this amp, and it's not uncommon to see that even in line production amps, where you'll have cutouts that don't get used, and that's the case here. The Custom Plexi, as I say, uses three 12AX7 type tubes and two 6v6 output tubes and a tube or solid state rectifier that goes in a tube socket as well. So here's the thing. On this layout, looking at this, V1 goes in this cutout here. This one's left empty. I don't mind even having that there open. If I decide to down the road, I can put another tube socket in there and put another tube gain stage in there to get more gain out of this amp if that's what I want to do. So it's a good option if you're a modder to have these extra cutouts. Following along, V2 goes in this one. So far, so good. V3 goes in here. And then over on this side, this is where the socket goes for the rectifier. This cutout here is left open. Again, it gives us some options for some other things we could do down the road. Here's the problem. The output tubes. They're octal based, so we've got that cut out. Somebody forgot to cut this one out. So this may be a problem, may not. My option really only is to see if I have a hole saw and if I can drill that out. So if I have a hole saw that size, I'll just pop out to my garage and cut that out. All right, lucky. We're flying into it now. So I did have a hole saw the right size. I was pretty sure I did. I've made plenty of chassis like this myself. It was a hair bigger than I needed, but it's not a problem. The socket still, tube socket still fits on there, and we don't have any gaping holes around it or anything. So we're back in action. Right now it's early January 2022, and it's minus 29 degrees outside, minus 37 with wind chill, and my garage is not heated. So I just spent 45 minutes rummaging around out in my garage, finding a hole saw, jigging this up in my drill press, and I did have to make a jig to hold it. And then getting it all lined up exactly right so I could center it and everything. So I'm kind of freezing right now. My hands are pretty cold. When I brought this in, a whole bunch of the moisture from the air condensed on it, so it's a little bit wet on top too. So not too bad. I'm going to start by installing the larger sockets first. In this, we've got the keyway going this way for all three sockets. So the holes for the sockets are tapped holes. So you use a number 4 screw just through the top into the chassis. You don't need Keps nuts or anything on the other side. Before we put the machine screws in, though, we also need to make sure we put the retainers over the tube sockets. Oh, and this is another thing I was going to point out. One thing I like to do, you've probably seen, and you will see in this build, that I use a piece of foam and I put all my components in the foam and then put a strip of tape labeling where the components are just so I can grab them easily. I never thought of this before, but I took all of the the mounting screws and things, and you can probably see, maybe you can't, that it says it's got a number 4 on there. So I took all the number 4 screws, hardware, lugs, nuts and things like that, and put them in a container. I put all the 6s in one with a sticky on it that says 6, and I put all the 8s in another one, just again, so it's easy for me to just grab. So another little tip for making your workflow quicker when you're working on amps. Okay, so that's the octal sockets installed. There is a little bit, just a tiniest bit of a gap you can see up around this one that I had to drill out. Like I said, the hole was a little bit bigger, and I had to sort of eyeball to center it. It's kind of hard to center it when there's a smaller hole already pre-existing. I thought I had it pretty close, but I was off just a little bit. So you can see that a little bit. It doesn't seem to be affecting the integrity. I can push on the tube socket. It's not threatening to fall through or bend through or anything. So unless I let that bother me, it's not going to. I would probably try and do something to hide that if this amp were going to somebody besides myself, but I'm keeping it, and so it's not a problem. So let's get on to the, we have three, the three preamp tubes, V1, V2, and V3, and there's a gap between pin 1 and 9, and we're just going to have that toward the inside of the amp. So we will load these up. The preamp tubes have a tube shield, and so there's a little extra mount for that tube shield. You want to make sure you don't forget to put that on before you mount the sockets. Okay, so that's the tube sockets installed. I'm going to just make sure that the tube shields sit down on here right. There's no reason why they shouldn't, although I have had sometimes these little mounting bases get a little bent out of shape. So, just like I said before, never think of a reason not to check something. They fit fine on there. I'm not going to leave them on. They're sticking out. We're going to be moving this around a lot before we put tubes in, and having these sticking out, they're just kind of thin aluminum, and I don't want to risk banging them on something or bending them or something. I don't need those on there till tubes are in there. Many amps actually don't have retainers for the output tubes. You don't even have to use the tube shields. Some people say that makes a difference to the tone. The shields are there to shield for noise. They also, if you get a tube that gets a little bit microphonic, there's a spring inside it that can kind of support the tube and keep it from rattling or ringing if you have a microphonic tube. Sometimes microphonic tubes sound nicer. So, but other people like to leave them off because they feel that the shields dampen the high end a little bit. I don't know if I ever sniff corks that hard or not, but I try on and off, and I'm kind of ambivalent. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount the clamp for the can cap. It just clamps closed with a screw, with a machine screw into a bolt. So we're going to loosen that off and make sure that the can cap is going to sit down inside it because it is out of round, and yeah, we're good there. And when we install it, I generally put it with the screw for the clamp toward the inside of the amp. I don't think it matters too much which way we put it in. That's just the way that I do it. We're going to install this. If you look at the can cap, it has 3 tabs. We're going to install this can cap so that these top 2 tabs are toward the outside of the chassis, and this single tab is toward the inside. So we just set that like that, and before we clamp this down tight, I'll just make sure that the orientation of those tabs is correct. We tighten this down with 2 number 6 3/8 inch number 6 machine screws. And we do put a caps nut on the other side. These holes are tapped. So I wonder why we need the caps nut. Well, the instructions say use a caps nut on the other side, so I'm going to do that. But it is, the holes are threaded, so I'm not really sure what the need is for those caps nuts. If I get down the road and find that I'm missing a couple of caps nuts somewhere else, I'll take them, I'll rob them from here. When I built the Triwatt, that happened. I put a couple of caps nuts on something, because I thought they should be there, and then we just didn't need them there, and I was missing some somewhere else, it turned out. So you want to set the can cap so it's down flush against the chassis, or as flush as you can get it. Okay, all kinds of strange, weird challenges today. My ZV-1 just decided to shut down for some reason, so I'm not sure where we were at. I know we were mounting the can cap. I've got the clamp on the chassis. I've got the cap itself sitting in the clamp. I haven't tightened the clamp yet. We're going to turn this over, and we're going to just double check that we've got the can cap oriented so that these top two tabs are parallel with the front and toward the front of the chassis. That all looks good. So we are going to put the screw and bolt back in, and you just want to clamp the cap snug so that you can't pull it out. If you over tighten it, you could crack the case. You don't need to go overboard on tightening all of this stuff. If you can't pull it out by hand, it's not going to fall out. And as I say, the instructions say to put the caps nuts on the bottom, so I'm going to do that for now. Okay, next thing we're going to do is install the two grommets for the output transformer. So there we have one grommet, two grommets. So I talked about these holes being open here. I didn't notice this. We have caps to put in them, so that's nice. That actually, if I'm being honest, that looks a lot nicer than a big hole being in there. So good to go there. And we're going to snap these two grommets in. Okay, we're going to put the front panel components on now, including the panel itself. Trinity Amps always sends the faceplate. It's always taped to the front of the chassis. I normally leave it on there until I put the components on. I had to take it off to do that, to enlarge that hole. So I'm just going to tape this back on, and then we're going to install. We have the indicator lamp to install, the on-off switch, the standby switch, bass, middle, treble control pots, gain, volume. We have two input jacks to install here. That's for this channel, and then we have a tone and volume pot for this channel, and another two inputs. That's the indicator lamp. So let's just start with that. Another thing that I do is, if you note that the tabs that you solder to are on the sides, if you put it so that your tabs are on top and bottom, you're going to have a really hard time trying to solder the bottom of that tab. Okay, it seems like the day of challenges. The ZV-1 just shut off again. I'm not sure what's going on there. I do have it set to operate on when the temperature gets high, so that shouldn't be it, and it doesn't feel hot. The ZV-1 is relatively new to me. I hope there's not a problem with it. I'll troubleshoot that later, but anyway, I'm having challenges today, so this video might not get as far along as I thought we would in this episode. We'll see what happens. Next thing we'll install is the standby and power switch. They're both the same, so it doesn't matter which switch goes in which hole. What does matter is that you, again, have the tabs oriented so you can get at them and work on them. And the ZV-1 has just shut itself down again. So this may be as far as we're going to get today. Okay, well, I've let the camera have about 20 minutes to cool down. Hopefully I can get through the rest of getting the components installed to the front of this chassis, and I'll call it quits for this video there. So I got all of the pots and jacks all ready to go in. I'm just going to blast through them really quick. So the base pot on this main channel is a 1 meg ohm. I don't tighten these all up until everything is in, because sometimes the chassis needs to shift a little bit when you get to one end or the other. The mid pot, which is a 250K. The middle pot was a 25K pot, not a 250, and I did have the right one in there. The treble pot is a 250K. Okay, 1 meg for the gain. The volume pot for this channel is also a 1 meg audio. And the jacks. The front nut for the jack goes through a plastic washer, and then it screws into the barrel of the jack here in plastic. And these jacks come with 2 fiber washers that go here. I only need one of those fiber washers, and it goes on the inside of the chassis. The tone control for the simple channel is an audio 500K. And the last control pot to put in is the volume pot for that channel, and that's a 1 meg audio again. Okay, last 2 jacks to install. Again, you want to be careful of 2 things. Number 1, don't cross thread the nut, and number 2, don't over tighten the nut or you'll strip it. They're all installed. I'm going to just tighten all these nuts up. I'm going to put hopefully I can put the knobs on before the camera decides to shut down again, and you'll get to see the front of the chassis as it's going to look. To me, that's when you really know you're building an amp. It starts to look like an amp. Okay, so there we are. All the controls. Nice, beautiful looking front faceplate. So on the original knobs, Marshall control knobs, they were held on with a little set screw that was usually a flathead, a brass washer, same as in the mystery pedal build. And those brass washers were quite soft. The metal was soft or brittle, and they would often break. So you'd get a knob on, and it would break, and you could never get the knob off again without destroying it. These are tightened with Allen keys. And something that's even better than an Allen key is a little Allen screwdriver, because you can't get as much torque on it. So far the camera's holding up. I must say, I really like that ZV-1. I've never been really like a camera guy. And as any of you who watched the Triwatt build will know, I filmed that all on my Acaso cameras, one of which has died now. And my other 2 Acasos I'm using for my front camera here, and my top camera, those are Acaso Brave 7 LEs. I really liked them, and they were fine, but I'd never had a real camera till I got this CV1, and I really liked that camera. Notwithstanding that I'm having some issues with it today, which I'm sure will get dealt with. My videos come right out of the camera looking great. I shoot in HLG3, and then adjust my color space. Took a little bit of work to get the Acassos to match to that, but the image to me looks great. I'll probably play around with picture profiles and other things if I get some time. As I say, I'm sort of limited to when I can work on YouTube, and when I can, I'd rather be doing something like this and creating content. But I do have some learning and some things to sort of work on and figure out over time here, and I will. So that's just some idle chit-chat while we're finishing this up. So there we go. We've got the front panel is all ready to go. You also want to check that all your knobs work right. You don't have maybe a bad pot, or sometimes on some amps, if you push the knobs right down, they actually push against the faceplate and won't turn smoothly. That doesn't seem to be happening here.
And that's the front of the Custom Plexi.
Given that I'm having some camera issues, and I've had other issues, had to drill out that hole that wasn't punched, and a few things like that, it's chewed up a lot of my time. So I'm going to call it quits on this second video of the winter build. Still a fair bit of work was done. We got the tube sockets all in, cap can, all the front panel components and knobs are installed. So next video I have to put on back panel components, grounding lugs, turrets. I'll know better when I plan for that one. At any rate, I think we got some good stuff done today. Made some good headway. Like always, thanks for watching. Please, if you like this video, please click that like button, subscribe, so you get notified when I post new videos, especially in this series. Ring the bell. I really appreciate the help that gives in getting my videos viewed more by a wider audience. Please recommend me to your friends. Other people who would be interested in my channel. That would be awesome. I'd appreciate that too. Like always, the links to my band One Soul Thrust are below. Please check us out and consider supporting us on Patreon. Until next time, we'll see you.